Hello students, a quick review of two bones of the forearm after the triangles of the neck. In all detail, in the next lecture, we will revise the triangles of the neck. Before to that, a quick review of the radius and ulna. Both of these are the right-sided radius and ulna. These are the bones of the forearm. Radius is the lateral bone of the forearm and ulna is the medial bone of the forearm. This is superior radio-ulnar articulation. Inferiorly, the head of the ulna articulates with the ulnar notch to form the inferior radio-ulnar joint. These bones are of a different person, so unfortunately I can't show you the matching exactly to each other. So this is radius and the medial bone is the ulna. Ulna is the stabilizing bone of the forearm. Radius moves around the ulna during the act of the supination and pronation. So like this, the radius moves when you do the pronation of the forearm. The radius goes to the medial side, and naturally in an anatomical position the radius remains to the lateral side, and during the pronation it goes to the medial side. So radius moves around the ulna, and this ulna is a stable bone, so it is called as the stabilizing bone of the forearm. This one is the radius. So both the bones make an articulation to each other, superior radio-ulnar joint. Here the head articulates with the ulna to form the superior radio-ulnar joint, and head of the ulna. See, missingly you will say this is head. This is the head of the ulna. The head of the ulna articulates with the ulnar notch to the lower end of the radius to form the inferior radio-ulnar joint. In addition to this, the interosseous borders will give attachment to the interosseous membrane in between the radius and ulna. This is also one of the joint, interosseous joint in between the radius and ulna. So these are the two bones of the forearm. One by one we will study the features, then the attachments, then the applied anatomy, and lastly the developmental anatomy. So this is the bone of the right sided radius. So this is a anatomical position of the right sided radius. In this manner the radial bone is there. So this is the radius of a right sided. I will at the end of the features I will teach you how to determine the side of the bone. So side determination, unless and until you know the features, you will not understand the side of this bone. Out of 1000 bones, if you pick up any bone, you can easily determine the side by only 3 points that I will tell you at the end of the features. So first of all, this is the head. The head is almost like a disc. This head gets articulated with the capitulum of the humerus to form the elbow joint. It is a radiohumeral joint, and it is a part of the elbow joint. Radius, ulna and humerus, lower end of the humerus forms the elbow joint. So this head, see this head, superior surface of this head is like a cup or like a disc. So head, superior surface of the head is concave above and it is almost disc shaped. Then the lower part of the head that continues as a shaft is called as a neck. So this is the neck of the radius. This is the neck of the radius, and this head is like a disc. On an anterior medial aspect of the junction of the upper end with the shaft. So this is upper end, shaft and lower end. Upper end consists of a disc shaped head. Neck. What is neck? Neck is the constricted part below the head, and on an anterior medial aspect there is a elevated part called as a radial tuberosity. This radial tuberosity is an important feature of the radius, because when you do flexion of your elbow joint, at that time this radial tuberosity passes into the radial fossa of the humerus, where above the capitulum there is one small fossa for accommodation of the radial tuberosity during the flexion. This radial tuberosity passes into the radial fossa when you flex your elbow. Then this is also, it plays an important role. This is the elevated part. Why nature has made it elevated? Because the bicep femoris muscle, it gets inserted there, and you have to stage flexion and extension throughout the life, and this becomes prominent more and more. Bicep femoris is inserted here, that's why this tuberosity become more prominent in human being. In other animals, this tuberosity is not that much prominent due to the overuse of your elbows, flexion and extension. So this is a radial tuberosity. This radial tuberosity is roughened anteriorly. It is roughened anteriorly and it is smooth posteriorly. It is smooth anteriorly and roughened posteriorly. Smooth anteriorly and roughened posteriorly, and tendon of the bicep brachii is inserted there. That is the clinical importance of this tuberosity, and this one constricted part of the below the head is called as a neck. Head, neck and radial tuberosity, these are the three important features, and the head remains inside the articular disc of the elbow joint. So you know the line of demarcation of the elbow joint, so it remains inside the elbow joint. Then the portion that connects the head with the lower head is called as the shaft. This shaft is little bit convex laterally. It is not vertical. It is little bit convex laterally, and it has three borders and three surfaces, and one nutrient foramina is there for the blood supply. Three borders. The shaft of the humerus very commonly gets fractured in the Colles fracture and in Smith's fracture. This lower 1/3 of the shaft is commonly fractured here, especially in the children, those falling from the bicycle. Commonly this bone gets fractured here. It's called as Colles fracture, and the lower fragment goes posterior when the hand is outstretched, and the lower fragment goes forward in Colles fracture, like this. Colles fracture, and this is Smith's fracture. This fragment goes backward in Colles fracture, and this fragment comes forward in Smith's fracture. So we'll see the features of the shaft. Again, shaft is the portion in between the upper end and lower end. It has three borders and three surfaces. The most prominent border is the interosseous border. See, look here, the interosseous border is more to be prominent. It will give attachment to the interosseous membrane in between the radius and ulna. Just I have showed the radius and ulna. Now the borders, interosseous border, it starts just below to the radial tuberosity. It is prominent in the mid of the shaft, and it ends at the posterior aspect of the ulnar notch. This is the ulnar notch for articulation of the head of the ulna. So it ends at the posterior aspect of the ulnar notch. Then the anterior border. This is the anterior border. Anterior border starts at from the radial tuberosity. It is little bit prominent in the first part, but becomes ill-defined in the lower part, and it ends into the styloid process. This is a styloid process. You can palpate your styloid process in the snub box here. This is a snub box, as all of you know. See, this styloid process ends into the this anterior border ends into the styloid process. So this one is the styloid process. Then the posterior border. See, posterior aspect of the radial tuberosity, from here the posterior border starts. So you can say this anterior border and posterior borders are the mirror images of each other. So this anterior border starts in the at the lower aspect of the radial tuberosity. It is prominent in the first part and ends into the styloid process. The posterior border starts behind the radial tuberosity, and it ends into the. It is a little bit prominent in the middle part, and it becomes roughened. It becomes rounded in the lower part and ends into the styloid process. So again revise: interosseous border, anterior border, and posterior border. Anterior and posterior borders both ends into the styloid process. Interosseous border ends at the posterior aspect of the ulnar notch. So interosseous border are also called as a medial border, and anterior border and posterior border. Then there is a nutrient foramen. You will see, you will get a nutrient foramina on a anterior aspect of the in between the interosseous border and anterior border. This one is a anterior, this one is called as a nutrient foramina for the blood supply of the radius branch of the radial artery, the nutrient artery. Then the surface in between the interosseous border and anterior border is called as a anterior surface. Surface in between the anterior border and posterior border is lateral surface. This lateral surface is subcutaneous. You can palpate your lateral surface of your radius. Lateral surface. Surface in between the anterior border and posterior border is a lateral surface. Surface in between the interosseous border and posterior border is called as a posterior surface. Then this head, see this shaped head is palpable in the fossa. If you extend your elbow, and here is one fossa like structure. If you fully extend your elbow, you will get one fossa. And if you palpate with your index finger in this fossa, you can test your own radius. Radius is subcutaneous, just under cover of the skin. If you extend your elbow, you will get the head of the radius here. So this one is the head of the radius in a surface marking. You can, and even you can do surface marking of your own radius. The styloid process, this is the styloid process of the, unfortunately the styloid process is broken of the ulna. Here is the styloid process. Styloid process of the ulna and radius are not in a similar line. Styloid process of the radius is 1 centimeter below to the, or 1 centimeter distal to the styloid process of the ulna. During dislocation, when these bone fractures, they get dislocated, at that time the styloid process of the ulna goes downward in Colles fracture and Smith fracture. So these are the surfaces and the borders of the radius. Again revise: interosseous border, anterior border and posterior border. Anterior surface, posterior surface, and anterior surface, posterior surface and lateral surface. These are the surfaces of the radius. Now you observe in all directions the lower end of the radius. Lower end of the radius is the lateral aspect of the lower end is extended downward, and it is nothing but the styloid process of the radius. This styloid process of the radius is palpable in the anatomical snub box. This is the anatomical snub box. Clinically, this anatomical snub box is important because you will see, if you cautiously look into the anatomical snub box, you will get a palpation of a radial artery. Radial pulse you will get in the anatomical snub box. So radial artery passes from the in front of the anterior surface of the radius, and it passes into the snub box, and it makes an anastomosis with the ulnar artery, superficial palmar arch and deep palmar arch. So the lower end of the radius has 5 surfaces: anterior surface, posterior surface, lateral surface, medial surface and inferior surface. I again revise: the lower end consists of a styloid process, anterior surface, lateral surface, posterior surface, medial surface and inferior surface. Inferior surface, you observe keenly the inferior surface. The inferior surface is concave, and laterally there is a triangular surface, articular surface, which articulate with the scaphoid bone. You know the carpal bones: scaphoid, lunate, triquetral and pisiform. These are the proximal row bones of the carpal bones, out of which the first carpal bone, that is scaphoid, it articulates here to this triangular area to form the wrist joint, and medially the lunate gets articulated here. Lunate bone gets articulated here, scaphoid and lunate, to form the wrist joint. Okay. Now on a lateral aspect there is one notch. That notch is called as the ulnar notch. This ulnar, head of the ulna articulate here to form the inferior radio ulnar joint, and this joint, this is the joint in between the radius and carpal bones. Ulna practically do not participate in the formation of a wrist joint, only radius and carpal bone. And practically in the formation of a elbow joint, the radius is just a supporting bone. The head articulates to the capitulum, but it do not participate. It do not participate in the formation of a elbow joint. So bone of the wrist is the radius and bone of the elbow is ulna. Ulna is stabilizing bone of the forearm. So the anterior surface of the radius, the lower end of the radius is clinically important in your life, even in the life of a doctor, because you know better. You have to examine the pulse of every patient. So you examine the pulse, radial pulse. So radial artery passes in front of the anterior. Anterior surface is little bit smooth and concave. So radial artery, you palpate radial artery for radial pulse here. So radial artery passes in front of this anterior surface and you examine radial pulse here in the anterior surface of the lower end. So you observe the posterior surface. Posterior surface of the lower end is grooved and it consists of the tubercles due to the formation of the grooves. The highest tubercle of this posterior aspect of the lower end is called as a Lister's tubercle. This is Lister's tubercle, and tendons of the extensor muscles of the forearm, back of the forearm, passes through these grooves, and that's why the nature has formed this groove for passing the tendons of the extensor muscles of the forearm. And on a lateral aspect, on a medial aspect, this is the medial aspect of the lower end, which consists of a ulnar notch, and this is the styloid process of the radius. Styloid process of the radius is 1 centimeter distal to the styloid process of the ulna. You can see this is styloid process is prominent of the ulna, but styloid process of the radius you have to palpate in the snub box. You can palpate the styloid process of the ulna in the snub box. But styloid process of the ulna is prominent. It is bony prominent. This is styloid process of the ulna, and this is the styloid process of the radius. So they are not in a horizontal plane. The styloid process of the radius is 1 centimeter distal to the styloid process of the ulna. Then this is Lister's tubercle. These are then this one is a ulnar notch, styloid process, anterior surface, posterior surface. Posterior surface is roughened and grooved, and this one is the medial surface, and lateral surface consists of the styloid process only. Styloid process of the radius. Styloid process of the radius. The lateral surface of the shaft is smooth, and it can be palpated. You can palpate the lateral surface of the radius. Otherwise, even the styloid process of the radius is also palpable in snub box. You can palpate the head also by bending your elbow in the wrist joint. Then the clinical, the site determination of the bone. Pick up the bone and do the styloid process downward and head is above. That is superior and inferior. Now how to detect anterior and posterior? Anteromedially there is a radial tuberosity. The interosseous border is medially. Okay, styloid process is laterally. Then anterior aspect of the lower end is smooth to detect anterior and posterior, and posterior aspect of the lower end is grooved. Okay, and how to detect lateral and medially? Styloid process is laterally, and radial tuberosity is anteromedially. This is radial tuberosity. You can detect the side of the radius very easily. Superior, inferior, lateral, medial, anterior, posterior. This is upper right sided because head is anteromedially, styloid process is laterally, anterior aspect of the lower end is smooth and concave, by which you can easily detect this is upper right sided radius. Now, the clinical anatomy of this bone. In a childhood, the most important clinical feature of this radius is that is subluxation of the radius. You know, in the elbow joint, there is an annular ligament that covers like a belt to this radius, radial head, and it is like a belt to the head. And if this annular, if this hair, especially in the children's, the mothers or any old persons pick up the hand of a child forcefully, this head comes outside the annular ligament, and that is called as a subluxation of the radius. Subluxation of the radius coming out of the head of the radius from the annular ligament is called as a subluxation of the radius. Second important clinical anatomy point, commonly if the radius and ulna commonly may get fractured commonly in the middle, but generally in an outstretched hand, especially in the children when it falls from the cycle or when they jump and falls in this manner. This is outstretched hand and this is instretched hand. If child falls, or anybody, even from the motorcycle or from jumping during the act of time, he falls on the in the position of an outstretched hand, there is a fracture of the radius. The fracture of the radius after falling by outstretched hand is called as Colles fracture. The lower fragment goes backward in Colles fracture. And if the same person falls on instretched hand, the lower fragment comes forward. So, in the X-ray, you can easily determine the history of a falling. Outstretched Colles fragment posterior, instretched Smith's fracture, lower fragment comes forward. So you can easily differentiate the Colles fracture. Colles is very commonly, and the Smith's is little bit less common. So Colles fracture, radial disc subluxation, then Colles fracture, Smith's fracture, then radio-ulnar diastasis. See what happens in the fracture of a radius and ulna. Suppose both the bones get fractured, then there will be 4 fragments. ये एक टुकड़ा, ये एक टुकड़ा, ये एक टुकड़ा, ये एक टुकड़ा, 4 टुकड़े हो गए मिसिंगली. और समझो कि सिर्फ रेडियस ही फ्रैक्चर हो गया, ओनली रेडियस के 2 इन द मिड ऑफ द शाफ्ट, और ये मिसिंगली गलती से ये लोअर फ्रैगमेंट अल्ना को ज्वाइंट हो गया, अल्ना को, और रेडियस का इतना पार्ट वैसा रहेगा, ये नीचे वाला टुकड़ा अल्ना को हील हो गया. एट दैट टाइम आफ्टर हीलिंग इन सच a condition, this clinical condition is called as a radio-ulnar diastasis. और अल्ना का एक टुकड़ा, समझो दोनों अल्ना फ्रैक्चर हो गया, अल्ना का एक टुकड़ा रेडियस को ज्वाइन हो जाता है, हील हो जाता है, और वो उसको ज्वाइन हो जाता है, और ये ऊपर का अल्ना रहता है. ऐसी अवस्था में इन दिस कंडीशन द पेशेंट कैनॉट डू प्रोनेशन एंड सुपाइनेशन. Pronation and supination actions are failed in the radio-ulnar diastasis. You got? So these are some clinical anatomy important points regarding the radius. Radius is movable around the ulna, but ulna is stabilizing bone. It remains fixed in the forearm. So these are the important features and clinical anatomy of the lateral sided bone of the forearm. See, the muscle attachment and ligamental attachment of the radius. We'll see the muscle attachment and ligamental attachments of the radius. So first of all, the ligamental attachment. Annular ligament of the, it is a ligament that connects the superior radioulnar joint. It is a ligament of the superior. It is connected to the, this is called as a radial notch. Here there is a belt like ligament called as the annular ligament. This annular ligament winds the head. Then the interosseous membrane will give attachment to the interosseous joint in between the radius and ulna. Interosseous ligament here. Then on a lateral aspect, the radial collateral ligament, with radial collateral ligament gets articulated to the lateral aspect, radial collateral ligament of the elbow joint here. Then the interosseous membrane. Then the line of demarcation of the elbow joint. This is the line of demarcation of the wrist joint, and the head. This is the line of demarcation of the elbow joint and annular ligament. Annular ligament, interosseous, then the capsular ligament of the elbow joint, and this is the line of demarcation of a capsular ligament of the wrist joint. Gets, this is the line of demarcation by green color. Just I have shown you the green color is the line of demarcation of the ligaments of the ligamental attachment of the radius. Ligamental attachment of the radius. I have told you the bicep brachii is inserted here. The bicep brachii, and bicep brachii is inserted, tendon of the bicep brachii. On a lateral aspect, there is a insertion of the pronator teres. Below to that, there is a insertion of the muscle brachioradialis on a anterior surface. This is, there is a origin of the flexor pollicis longus, and below pronator quadratus. Pronator quadratus gets originated from here. It is a very short muscle, origin on the lower end of the radius and inserted on the anterior aspect of the lower end of the ulna. It is a quadrangular muscle. That's why it is called as a. So again revise, the bicep brachii is inserted here. The flexor pollicis longus. This is the flexor aspect. This is the back side is the extensor aspect. So bicep brachii, interosseous membrane, then the pronator teres, brachioradialis insertion. Origins of the flexor pollicis longus, then the pronator quadratus, the origins of. Then on a posterior aspect, origin of the abductor pollicis longus, and below and laterally extensor pollicis brevis. Then on the radial head of the flexor digitorum superficialis. Then this one is a interosseous membrane. These are the interosseous attachment to the interosseous membrane. Then through the groove, the tendons of the extensor muscles passes from the grooves in between the grooves of the posterior aspect of the lower end. So this is all about the muscular attachment, muscular and ligamental attachment of the ligamental attachment of the radius and clinical anatomy. We have already discussed the clinical anatomy of the radius. Commonly this bone gets fractured in the Pullis fracture is very common. Smith fracture is also common, but it may get fractured along with the ulna and radial diastasis. If it is treated at home, the radial diastasis, chances of the radial diastasis, the one piece of the ulna articulate with the ulna, that is called as a radio-ulnar diastasis. So these are the some clinical anatomy points regarding the radius.